Hello, this extraordinary and in a sense even a fairy tale type of story finally took more or less realistic shape. And I don't mean the long Russian winter that after 5 months of unquestioning rule has given way to this nice looking spring. No, I mean Hans-Dieter Flick, the head coach of Bayern Munich. The last decade gifted us a lot of unexpected coaching ups, but probably none of them has been as sensational. As Pep Guardiola and Diego Simeone, let alone Zinedine Zidane, have different and much more prestigious pedigree than footballers. As for Roberto Di Matteo, he quickly ran out of luck, or rather ran out of his skills.
It would be unfair to say that Flick's career as a player was absolutely inconspicuous though. In the 1980s, he has been a solid central midfielder, spending 5 full seasons at Bayern, a span which brought 4 Bundesliga titles and 1 German Cup. On the other hand, the German has never been a part of his senior national squad, and this pretty much reflects Hans-Dieter's level of talent in this capacity. In the summer of 1990, after Bayern acquired the young Stefan Effenberg, Flick moved to Köln at the age of 25. Back at the moment, he certainly didn't think that his career is near the end, but the severe knee injury forced him to effectively retire just 2 seasons later. Transforming into coach, the German definitely took his time, managing 2 small-town clubs in his country. Hoffenheim were one of them, which is curious, but in the early 2000s the team was a part of the Oberliga. Later, Hans Dieter, along with his former teammate the famous Lothar Matthäus, briefly assisted to Giovanni Trapattoni at Red Bull Salzburg. Shortly after that, Flick became a second coach of the German national team, helping Joachim Löw for 8 years. It's interesting that this role, despite an obvious lack of media attention, has a rich and a prestigious legacy. As you may see, many of the coaches who took this path eventually made brilliant careers, and it's hardly a coincidence. Showing a good knowledge and taste to the passing game, the German was a part of the staff that has led the Bundes team to the World Cup triumph in 2014 in Brazil, but shortly after that left his job and switched to a different type of activity. Serving as a sporting director at the German Football Association for 2.5 years, Hans Dieter took a sabbatical in 2017, but 2 years later returned to coaching, becoming an assistant at Bayern under the management of Nico Koch. The Croat, who was desperately trying to make the German Giants a fast-paced type of team a la Klopp's Liverpool, had a lot of ups and downs, but ultimately failed. In November 2019, Koch has been fired, and in the absence of the legitimate successor, the Bayern board decided to give a chance to Flick as an interim coach. The German's debut was impressive. Finding his club on an accustomed 4th place, he immediately thrashed Borussia Dortmund, but after that he lost a pair of games, and it would be fair to say that Flick was pretty fortunate to retain his job. But the negotiations with Arsene Wenger broke down, and Thomas Tuchel was unavailable back at the time, so Hans Dieter continued to work, and soon things have really come together. Closing the previous year with 3 victories in a row, Flick has won all but 1 matches en route to the historic treble in August of 2020. It needless to say that by the time this feat has been accomplished, the German was already a permanent manager. So how he has been able to change the club's fortune so quickly? Well, Flick's ability to unite the team and provide a healthy atmosphere in the locker room is widely known, but it's only a part of the equation, and perhaps not the most sufficient. Probably far more important, that right after his appointment, he swiftly changed Bayern's playing style, returning to a predominantly positional offense, and in this regard, he has proven himself an incredibly skillful coach. As of today, only Manchester City, Real, and let's rely on the old memory Barcelona, have the same level of passing, improvisation, and effectiveness in their long attacks. On the other hand, there is a big difference in style. The thing that visibly separates Flick's distinctive coaching manner is the frequent usage of an offside trap. Bayern, under his guidance, liked to gamble a lot in this regard, literally trying to squeeze the opponents from Manuel Neuer's half of the pitch. As a result, during this Champions League, the German Giants organized almost as many offsides as all the other top clubs combined. The reason of such love to this specific trick is clear. Flick's team constantly wins games through attack, and this type of aggressiveness is designed in order to make the game as open as possible and force a high-scoring affair. On top of that, Bayern, with a lot of quick players in their ranks, are extremely dangerous in a fast break or transition situations, and are scoring a lot right after steals and interceptions. That's why Flick, unlike many of his prominent colleagues, prefers to rotate players at the back, obviously trying to sustain a certain level of intensity and mobility, because the usage of such high defensive line is extremely energy consuming. It's worth to mention that the most Bayern defenders are versatile, and this fact certainly makes the coach's life a bit easier. In general, the tactics of man-made offside trap gives the German champion a solid advantage, but it's a double-edged weapon, and the recent match against PSG at the Allianz Arena demonstrated it very accurately. In the situation when Bayern weren't sharp at the maneuvers, mainly due to the fatigue of Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka, who came from the national team exhausted and couldn't provide enough help, Kylian Mbappe and Neymar, probably currently best two players in the world on the open pitch, simply mauled Neuer and company. In the attack, Flick also builds the play in a precise way. The trio of attacking midfielders supports and even in a sense serves Robert Lewandowski, who therefore produces goals in astronomical terms. The Pole lately has been on the way to break the old and seemingly eternal Gerd Müller's record, 40 goals in one Bundesliga campaign, until the treacherous injury blurred this prospect. As for his long-time attacking partner Thomas Müller, he successfully assumed a role of professor within this trio. It doesn't mean, though, that the German is free of hard work on the pitch. Quite the contrary. Müller's defensive output is always palpable, and despite his innate slowness, he stably runs 10-11 km per game. But Thomas's main strength is ability to make right decisions in a split of a second, especially in the tight spaces, and his remarkable effectiveness. It's worth to mention that Flick's switch to a primarily combinational football literally revitalized Müller, who after the Euro 2016 for 3 years has been far away from his normal form and during the stint visibly lost confidence. It's evident that at this stage of his career, a highly intelligent football suits him much more than a fast one. In their turn, Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry and Kingsley Coman set Bayern in motion. They run and press a lot in each game, trying to free Müller and especially Lewandowski from dirty work in order to help them stay as fresh and lucid as possible. Knowing how much effort it takes, Flick is striving to give them equal minutes, and with graphics ideally prove it. Sané and Coman, who are among the Bundesliga assist leaders, and Gnabry, who is rather a scorer, spent almost exactly the same time on the pitch this term. In fact, the Bayern head coach would like to rotate even more, but the injury-prone Douglas Costa couldn't provide a four-man rotation in this zone. Meanwhile, in the previous campaign, the German had at his disposal the productive Ivan Perisic and Felipe Coutinho, and was pretty much upset by their loss. On the other hand, the vast majority of Bayern's latest signings proved to be a flop. Bouna Sarr and Marc Roca barely played this season. Douglas Costa has been mentioned already. As for Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, he did a nice job being Lewandowski's understudy, but apparently it was only an episodic role. At the same time, Bayern inevitably will lose David Alaba, who opted to leave the Allianz Arena as a free agent this summer. There is no wonder that Flick all season long was desperately unhappy with Hasan Salihamidzic's work as the club's sporting director and regularly demonstrated his frustration publicly, especially after the Bosnian refused to give a new contract to Jerome Boateng, who despite his age and apparent lack of reliability remains an important figure for the coach. All these factors, let's not forget that Bayern's three best and the most venerable players are almost 100 years old combined, forced Flick to contemplate his possible departure and as a result lately announced it after the end of the season. In the situation when the squad could become weaker, but the demands would be as high as usual, pressure on the head coach will relentlessly mount, and the German obviously would like to avoid this kind of predicament. On the other hand, the head coach's job in the Bundesteam will be vacant after the upcoming Euro, and there is no more obvious candidate to fill the void than Hans Dichter. Work in the national team seems less stressful and more secure, and looks like that Flick could well go for it. In that case, who will be the German successor? Not long ago there was only one name in the context, Julian Nagelsmann. But as much as talented he is, there is a major issue. The German champions have to pay big clubs, around 15-20 million euros, in order to bring him, because Nagelsmann's contract with Red Bull Leipzig is valid for 2 more years. Knowing how stingy are the bosses of Bayern, it well could be a stumbling block. Meanwhile, there is Massimiliano Allegri, who is currently a free agent. Therefore, it's easier to negotiate with him. Unlike Nagelsmann, the Italian also has plenty of winning experience and is accustomed to deal with the veteran players. The problem is that Allegri doesn't speak German. Moreover, his English is questionable too, and he has never worked abroad. On top of that, the Italian is a classic defensively orientated coach, the style which has been out of practice in München for almost 25 years, since the Trapattoni period. By the way, hiring Nagelsmann, Bayern will have to adapt as well, because it would be in a sense come back to an up-tempo game, the manner that also didn't suit the German giants well in the past.
In any case, the outcome of this story is around the corner, given that the desire to have a certainty as soon as possible has always been one of the